Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. And now, the champion, fighting out of Los Angeles, California. This man is a movie snob with a background in fighting and a lifelong addiction to all things superhero related. Presenting the reigning, defending, undisputed host of the show, the Iron Cube.
All right, welcome to the show, everybody. This is episode number 108 of the Iron Cube Fights Movies. This episode is available on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and hosted by SoundCloud. We now have a Facebook page for the podcast. You can follow for updates as well as my 1/6 scale figure reviews. This week, the team reviews X-Men Dark Phoenix, followed by movie, television, and video game news. I'm Kier, your host. With me on the show today are my co-hosts Emerson.
Hey.
And Everett.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm going to explain our rating system. On this show, we give the titles we've watched with a rating of win, draw, or loss. A win is a title that we would highly recommend, while a draw is a title we didn't love, but recognize others may appreciate. A loss means we do not recommend the title. If you have not seen the review of the week and would like to avoid spoilers, check the show notes for the timestamp so you can still hear our news sections. Alright, synopsis for X-Men Dark Phoenix. This is the story of one of the X-Men's most beloved characters, Jean Grey, as she evolves into the iconic Dark Phoenix in all caps. During a life-threatening rescue mission in space, Jean is hit by a cosmic force that transforms her into one of the most powerful mutants of all. Wrestling with this increasingly unstable power, as well as her own personal demons, Jean spirals out of control, tearing the X-Men family apart and threatening to destroy the very fabric of our planet. The film is the most intense and emotional X-Men movie ever made. It is the culmination of 20 years of X-Men movies, as the family of mutants that we've come to know and love must face their most devastating enemy yet, one of their own. That kind of sounds like it was written by someone who doesn't really know X-Men.
Yeah, also
kinda.
especially that last part where, now they're fighting one of their own. One of their own turns in like every single movie.
Yeah. Okay, let's go get into some ratings. Everett, what did you think?
I'm gonna give it a draw, just barely. I was gonna give it a loss, but I decided that there are a few select things in this movie that kind of put it over the threshold for me. Although, I really kind of have a lot of disdain for this movie because there's just so many things wrong with it, in my opinion. The pacing is kind of weird. The writing is awful. At this point, I feel like a majority of the actors are just phoning it in. No one really seems like they're taking it seriously. I sat through this movie and it didn't really feel like an X-Men movie. It didn't really feel like a movie at all. It just felt like things were happening on screen and I was supposed to be entertained. It was really awkward to watch, if that makes sense.
So why did you give it a draw?
I gave it a draw because there were a few... First of all, I really loved the soundtrack. Hans Zimmer did a great job. And second, there were a few select scenes and moments that kind of made me smile. Like, I love the effects that they use for the Phoenix Force, like at the end and when she transforms. I think those look really cool. And then there was the Nightcrawler scene on the train at the end. I'll go into detail when we get into spoilers, but I really enjoyed that scene, a few select others. But yeah, it's a draw.
Okay. Emerson?
So I agree with Everett. There was so much wrong with this movie, but just for the nostalgia, I think none of the criticisms matter. So I'm going to give it a win. And disagree with everything you guys said. No, I'm kidding, of course. I actually give this movie a draw. There were a lot of things I truly think were questionable and really not very good, but something about it is slightly redeeming. It felt like it went very quickly to me. There were some pretty cool action scenes, and also, these actors, this is the last time we're going to see the X-Men for a while. I think about 5 years, right? Until we're supposed to see them again.
Yeah, supposedly.
Okay, so this is the last time we're going to see them for a while. And it was kind of fun to see some of the power sets again. And I still think they have a lot of great actors in this movie, some of which weren't really utilized well. But, so, it's a draw, not a win by far, but something about it elevates it above a loss. And I'll talk more about what I think that is in the spoilers section.
All right. So for me, this movie is a draw. And I would say I'm leaning more towards a win than a loss. But it's just because, first of all, I don't think that this movie deserves the hate that it's getting.
I agree.
So for a lot of people, because it's not Marvel, they're just like shitting on it. And Rotten Tomatoes originally had a score of like 14%. And X-Men Apocalypse, which is a turd, is like it was like at 25. This is not worse than Apocalypse. In fact, we should rate it at the end to see where we think it stands. But it has its moments. And Emerson, like you said, like this is going to be the last one of this franchise, and I just feel like a lot of the actors are amazing. And not that they necessarily did a fantastic job here, but just in general, like I enjoy watching them. And I enjoy watching them like play against each other. And I'm just going to miss like James McAvoy's Professor X and Michael Fassbender's Magneto. I don't care so much for Nicholas Hoult, but and I don't care about Jennifer Lawrence. But so I guess it's really just those two. And I didn't mind.
Yeah.
I didn't mind what's her name, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey.
No, she was surprisingly good. I know she's a Game of Thrones actor, so you guys have had more exposure to her than I have. But I was surprisingly interested in her character.
What about Ty Sheridan? Cyclops.
Cyclops?
There was some questionable writing, but I will say that he really made me believe that he was in love with her.
Yeah.
And I really felt like he was willing to do whatever was necessary to get her back. So I got to give him props for that.
Okay, so before we go into spoilers, one of the things that I brought up before is that this is one of the most overrated comic book storylines. Like, people put it on a pedestal, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, but without spoilers, do you guys think that this is a lot better than X3?
Oh yeah, it's better than X3, but I didn't think
Yes, it
X3 was
is.
that good to begin with.
I think this is less cluttered. It doesn't have the crazy,
I'm talking specifically about the Phoenix Force.
If we're talking specifically
Okay,
about the
well-
Phoenix Force, then yeah, I think it's definitely better than X3
But
because they
how
didn't
much
really
better?
go into much. I'd say like significantly much better because they didn't really go into detail about the Phoenix Force that much in X3. They just basically said that it was a part of Jean and that's it, and then she went nuts. With this, they explain sort of that it's a cosmic entity and that it's powerful, it's destroyed worlds. Like, they give it a lot more lore almost. Like, it's more comic accurate.
I guess a good way for me to put it would be, so I haven't seen X3 in probably 7, 8 years. I saw this movie last week. I would watch this movie again, happily, to be completely honest. I would not want to watch X3.
That'll be interesting when we get to X3 because I don't think it's as bad as you guys remember it.
No, but that's the side plot with the cure clutters it.
Yeah, and that and Juggernaut's kind of annoying. And
But
there's a
here
lot
you
of
have a
other
side
points in the
plot.
movie that are plot holy.
You have a side plot here that's aliens.
Oh, the aliens.
Yeah, I was
the
gonna bring that
aliens-
up.
Can we go into spoilers?
Before we go into spoilers, I want to read to you the plot of the original comic storyline. And this is the story that people have put on a pedestal. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Time for story time. Returning from a mission in space, Jean Grey is exposed to the deadly radiation of a solar flare and briefly attains her ultimate potential as a telepath and telekinetic. Jean becomes a being of pure thought, and then reforms herself upon to Earth with the new costume, identity, and power of Phoenix. It is with this incredible power that Jean repairs the fractured Macron crystal, but voluntarily restrains her powers afterward in order to keep them under control. Her vast potential makes her a target for Mastermind, who is attempting to prove himself in order to join the prestigious inner circle of the Hellfire Club. Under the identity of Jason Weingard, he begins to seduce Jean. With the help of a mind-tap device created by the club's White Queen, Emma Frost, Mastermind projects his illusions directly into Phoenix's mind. These illusions cause her to believe that she is reliving the memories of an ancestor, Lady Grey, who in Mastermind's illusions was the Hellfire Club's Black Queen and lover of one of Weingard's ancestors. Phoenix eventually accepts the Black Queen as her actual identity, a decadent role that allows her to relish the extremes of human emotion and begins to break down the barriers that she had erected. She helps the Hellfire Club capture the X-Men, and Jean's true love Cyclops faces Mastermind in a psychic duel. When Mastermind kills Cyclops' psychic image, it breaks his hold over Jean's psyche and shatters the final barriers of her power. Experiencing this power in its totality overwhelms Jean, and she renames herself Dark Phoenix. Enraged at Mastermind, she uses a telepathic illusion to make him experience godhood, driving him insane. To break her ties with her less powerful identity as Jean Grey, she strikes down the X-Men and departs for a distant galaxy. However, her power proves to be far more limited than she thought. The intergalactic trip leaves her almost completely drained. To recharge, she devours the energy of a nearby Debari star, causing a supernova which kills the entire population of the only civilized planet orbiting the star. a Shi'ar vessel attacks to prevent her from destroying the other stars. Dark Phoenix easily destroys the vessel, but not before they alert the Shi'ar Empress Lilandra. A council of intergalactic associates is gathered, including the Kree and Skrull empires, and concludes that Dark Phoenix is even more serious of a threat than the planet-consuming Galactus and must be destroyed. On Earth, the X-Men are greeted by Avengers member and former X-Man Beast. Dark Phoenix returns to Earth, to her family's home, and finds herself conflicted between her normal feelings for her loved ones and the new destructive impulses as Dark Phoenix. The X-Men attack her but are again defeated. Her mentor, Charles Xavier, arrives, and through a vicious psychic duel, he creates a new set of psychic circuit breakers which reduce her to only her original Marvel Girl powers. This allows Jean's normal personality to reassert control. The Shi'ar abduct the X-Men, tell them of Dark Phoenix's casual genocide, and declare that she must be put to death. Xavier challenges Lilandra to Arinhaliar, a Shi'ar duel of honor that cannot be refused. After conferring with the Kree and Skrulls, Lilandra agrees to Xavier's demand. The next day, the X-Men and the Shi'ar Imperial Guard are teleported to the blue area of the moon to do battle, with the victors deciding the fate of Phoenix. The Imperial Guard defeat most of the X-Men, leaving Cyclops and Phoenix alone to make a final stand. When Cyclops is seemingly killed, Jean's panic overrides Xavier's psychic restraints and restores her to Dark Phoenix. Lilandra initiates Plan Omega, which would consist of destroying the whole solar system in hopes of eliminating Dark Phoenix in the process. Xavier orders the X-Men to subdue Jean to preempt Lilandra's emergency measure. They battle her until she regains her senses. Running inside one of the blue area's ruins, Jean, struggling to keep control, activates an ancient Kree weapon which disintegrates her after an emotional goodbye to Cyclops. He deduces that Jean had planned her sacrifice from the moment they had landed on the moon. The story ends with Uatu the Watcher commenting that Jean Grey could have lived to become a god, but it was more important to her that she die a human.
So that sounds dumb as shit.
Yeah, it sounds a lot worse than the last time I read that.
Now, there are some elements of it that I think are pretty good, and I feel like this movie took the best parts of this and left the bad stuff. For example...
what do you mean? You don't like when she says, "My name is Dark Phoenix now," and genocides a planet?
I mean, those people are the ones from this movie.
It's
well, no. The people... Okay, we're in spoilers now. the people in this movie, the aliens, are Skrulls, aren't they?
Nope. That was the whole thing about this movie that they had to redo. Because I think originally they were similar to Skrulls, or they were Skrulls, and then Captain Marvel came out, and they had to do a shit ton of reshoots. I forget the name of the main woman who plays the main bad guy, but there was a whole thing where her character got rewritten so heavily that she didn't really even know who she was playing anymore on set. That's why they look so similar to Skrulls, but they're not Skrulls. They're those things that...
Well, yeah, but they're meant to be Skrulls. Like,
they're
that's
meant
who
to
they
be
are.
Skrulls, but they're not because they had to change it.
They're not a comic race. They're like made up. They're not from the comics. But they're basically Skrulls. Like, they do exactly what Skrulls do.
Yeah, they're a stand-in.
Yeah, they're generic Skrull. They're the
I wish they had used the shield.
say,
Rite
That
Aid
would've been
brand
in
cool.
Skrull.
regards to the alien, so I think the whole alien subplot was pretty stupid. I'm just going to say it right now. I think the best part of the aliens is when they were kind of scary, like walking through the forest and being aliens. And from then on, I just didn't care.
My favorite part about it is that they did the one thing that all action movies do with robots, aliens, and basically non-human life forms, is they completely killed all of them mercilessly. That's like one of the main rules that I thought actually worked really well in this movie. Like, you saw Cyclops disintegrating these people, and probably my favorite scene in the movie was Nightcrawler got super pissed and was
Yeah.
emulating Azazel.
That's what I'm
and it was
saying. The movie
fucking
has
awesome.
moments. Why'd you guys all go
Yeah,
quiet?
Well, we thought you were going to make a comment. Yeah, the movie has good moments, but I would have given it a win if it had better moments than it did.
Or if
But
had more
it has too
nostalgia.
many bad moments to like kind of outweigh it.
It's just, for me, the parts where it falls flat is that some of the story is just, it doesn't sell me on it. Like, when Cyclops says to Magneto, I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah,
Like, that doesn't
that
work.
was out of place.
And watching Jennifer Lawrence die was, like, hilarious.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Well,
They
okay,
ripped
so one thing
off
I wanted
Logan.
to
That's exactly how
mention
Logan
about
died.
that. One of the things we always talk about is how there needs to be like a sudden death that's not expected.
Yeah.
This is kind of close to that, and it would have been interesting to see like how we would have reacted if they hadn't given this away like 2 months ago in a trailer.
Yeah.
Not to mention,
I agree. Actually, sorry, Avery. Jade did not see the trailer and was actually surprised.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if we hadn't known about this, that would have been a crazy moment.
Because I was
Like-
laughing the moment she, like, walked up to Jean.
Yeah, so was I. Because I was
this
like,
bitch
oh
is
my
gonna
God.
get it.
And also, you know, I don't know who was in charge of that trailer, but they showed everything we needed for it to be confirmed. Every single thing.
Yeah.
they basically showed the whole movie. Like, that's probably why I felt so awkward watching this. It kind of felt like a long trailer, to be honest, like at certain points. But in terms of Mystique, I really don't care that she died, because it didn't seem like she was trying very hard in this movie anyway. If you notice, like,
What do you mean trying?
you know, well, okay, it's obvious that she was only in that first part of the movie just to get killed off. Like, she had no intention of trying her hardest. If you notice, like, they do very specific
What does that mean,
things
trying
to,
her hardest?
She
Who?
was not giving
Jennifer
her
Lawrence?
Jennifer Lawrence. She was not giving her a material. Like, she wasn't like putting her heart into it. Like, she knew she was gonna die. She knew she wasn't gonna be in the majority of the movie.
Yeah, but I
They
think
just-
you could say that about a lot of the cast.
Yeah, I know, because it's the last movie. They had to finish it up because
Well, they didn't know
it's-
it was the last movie when they made it.
Really?
Yeah. They made this like 2 years ago.
Well, anyway, the point I was trying to make about Mystique was that they make a lot of like subtle points to make it easier for Jennifer Lawrence to like not be in makeup. Like, you notice her makeup looks completely different from the other movies she's been in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty noticeable, and they have her like in the full body suit all the time, so they don't have to do the full makeup. Which,
Well, I was annoyed when she like in the mansion when they like come back after saving the planet or whatever. She switches to her
ex-woman?
What?
The ex-women or whatever.
I actually
That
thought that
line.
line was fine. Do you guys had a
it
problem with
was a
that?
little. It just
I
felt
just-
a little pointed, is all.
Here's the thing. Like, she says, oh, the women are always saving the men, but like, I don't see it as much as she was I didn't agree with the sentiment there. It seemed pretty balanced to me, but whatever.
Well, who
That
could she
and
be talking about? It's her. It's Jean Grey, who did save them
and
in
Storm.
Apocalypse, and Storm.
I mean,
Who was
Storm held the
evil.
ship together, but Nightcrawler and Quicksilver saved the crew, which
Yeah.
sucks because Quicksilver was barely in the movie at all.
Yeah, that was strange. That's one of the things I wrote down. Why did they sideline his character?
Because his power set is too powerful, I assume.
I guess. I mean, Jean Grey kind of screwed
Yeah,
him up
if he
in the
was
first
in
battle
if he
anyway.
was in that train battle, he would have solved it. 'Cause he could
annihilated
have just
everyone.
taken them. Yeah, he would have just taken them all away.
But he has good,
Yeah.
like, I liked, I, okay, so what I took from that original storyline, like, some of the good parts are, I like how she's basically too powerful for her own good. And it can only end with her, like, going away or dying, whatever you want to call it. So, like, the scene where they're fighting her, where Mystique dies, and Quicksilver is, like, running at her, and she defeats him, like, she's faster than he is. Like, I thought that was cool. That was as good to me as when Superman, like, beat the Flash.
I think it was
I mean,
actually
yeah.
a little better, to be honest.
Might have
'Cause
been,
it
yeah.
was better CGI.
And, like, and then I also like from the original when how she goes back to her old home. I think that's a cool.
I thought it was.
What?
Well, I thought that was like a better side plot than the whole alien thing. Was her parents? I really actually. That's one of the things I enjoyed about this movie is that her dad ended up resenting her.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good character scene. And then I like that her powers are so overwhelming too. Like she's kind of out of control. Here's the problem with the Phoenix thing is I actually think they did it better in X3 that it was something within her. Like she could not control her own powers. The idea that it's some sort of alien force that gets inside of her. I don't know. This is really about like the tragedy of Jean Grey. It's not the tragedy of the alien that got inside of her.
I mean, didn't they kind of hint at that in Apocalypse though when she killed Apocalypse? Like they kind of like showed you that she had that force inside her
They
when
don't
she
know
let go.
what the hell they're doing. Though.
Yeah, they didn't
To
know
be
what they were
fair,
doing.
the continuity between those two movies is questionable at
Yeah.
best.
That's what this series is well known for: is that there's a shit ton of plot holes everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Another super cheesy thing was that Phoenix flying in the sky at the end of the movie.
At the end.
Like that was stupid.
Yeah.
That means she's
Which
like
was-
It was
literally
incredibly
right there.
stupid.
She's right there. That wasn't even that far up in the sky.
I know.
That's
It's
like an
just-
airplane height.
And does that mean she's alive and she's just like flying around?
Yeah, that's what that means.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean she lived.
it's because they wanted to do a stupid. So she's purposely making the Phoenix Force into a Phoenix, basically.
Yeah.
That's what's happening there. So
They
she's
do that
taking
a
the time
lot,
to be
though.
like, I want to look like a giant bird. Okay, whatever. So one thing, Kia, you were on the point of things you liked. How did you, and Everett, how did you feel about how they were kind of putting Professor X, or seemed to be moving Professor X like, hey, you're actually kind of a dick.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that as
Um,
well. It's nice to see him look like a villain for once almost.
It was interesting because, I get that some people might be like, oh, you're destroying this classic character, but what I found interesting about it, especially at the end, was that like they weren't entirely wrong. He's still not entirely evil. Like he has good goals in mind,
Yeah.
but he is kind of selfish.
The
He
movie
reminds me
didn't
of
execute
Dumbledore.
it fully. Like that was like
On it,
what?
yeah, go on.
That was like they made that where he is mentally like he's sort of enjoying the X life, but they didn't make it like a real arc or an actual side plot or anything because the reality is that he like he took the credit, but it was also kind of earned, and he's not abusing them. I mean, it's been like 30 years. So, you know what I mean? Like they've literally been doing this for 3 decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though they don't look like it.
I was gonna say that's one of the things I really enjoy though about McAvoy playing him, is because every movie he's in,
I'll be right back.
kind of excluding Apocalypse, always has Professor X kind of looking like a bad guy in certain situations. Like in X-Men First Class, it showed him kind of being like prejudiced against how Mystique wanted to be all natural. And then in Days of Future Past, it showed him completely given up after all his students went to Vietnam. And he's like a drunken mess, completely like off his rocker. And then they kind of skipped over it in Apocalypse. But then in this movie, yeah, they showed him in a different light where he's like selfishly trying to control Jean and taking a lot of credit and stuff like that. It's interesting to see him like that.
I agree that they tend to show him in a different light, but I think for me, when I think of Professor X, what I think of is the original trilogy with Stewart, or what's his first name? Who is he?
Patrick Stewart. It is kind of
Patrick
odd
Stewart,
to
okay.
imagine that he turns into him eventually, though.
Right, because he's such a kind and caring and beneficial figure.
They're
And
like two
that's
different
really, for
people,
me,
though.
I know. Well, there are two different people, really.
Well,
But for me, he's the definitive Professor X.
Wait,
Yeah.
which one?
I'm saying when I think
Patrick
of Professor
Stewart.
X, I think of Patrick Stewart. I really do. Still, even though I think James McAvoy is amazing and a phenomenal actor, when I think of Professor X, I don't know if it's because I saw those movies first or because I knew about them for so long. When I think of Professor X, I think of Patrick Stewart in the chair.
I think
Like,
it has
saying
something to
stuff.
do with the character and the age difference. Because Patrick Stewart, like Professor X, is supposed to be someone who's like almost like a father, and so Patrick Stewart to us is much older. James McAvoy is not like, I don't get those vibes from him. He seems more
No.
like a coworker, like someone I might be on like equal terms with. Not just because of age, but just in the way like his character is. He's like younger and a little more reckless, I guess. He's not super like calculating all the time, whereas Patrick Stewart is like that wise old man.
Yeah.
What happened?
It is kind of odd though. Like I don't even know if they're still following the continuity with the series, but this takes place in the 90s, right? So isn't he supposed to turn into Patrick Stewart in like
Yeah.
8 years?
Well, I think that the idea is that Days of Future Past created a completely new timeline. So they're
Okay.
not.
Yeah, I mean, Jean's dead. So, like,
Well,
Any
Yeah.
idea
no, she
of
showed
there
up at the
being
end
one-
of Days of Future Past.
yeah, but, like,
It's not circling back to where they
yeah,
were.
no, I mean, Magneto is, like, happy again.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to mention. What did you guys think of the Genosha scenes?
I thought it was because we had read a leak about that, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
I thought that it was way better than I expected.
Most of it was. What I will say was god awful is when he comes, like, when Jean first gets the Genosha and he, like, comes out of the house. I don't know about you guys, but the CGI looked awful to me. Awful.
When
As
he
he's, like,
comes out.
flying out. Remember, he, like, flies towards Jean.
Yeah,
It looked
I vaguely
so
remember that.
stupid.
Yeah.
I like laughed. I was like, "What is this?" And then his acting overwhelmed the stupidity of it. But oh man,
I actually thought Magneto was pretty badass in this film.
oh,
Not as
excuse
much
me,
as-
kinda-
that's one of the things.
Yeah,
His train fight is phenomenal.
yeah, yeah. Like not as much as in Days of Future Past, which I think I'm going to rewatch that. But he definitely had some really great moments.
Yeah,
It is
Yeah.
kind of odd though. Like he and Beast basically just well, not him because he's an anti-hero at this point. But I don't. Beast just kind of flips and straight up just tries to go kill her with him.
Beast
I kind of
has
liked
been
that.
a terrible character since X-Men First Class.
But see, I kind of liked that he wanted to kill Jean because I liked the somewhat duality of like X-Men Civil War. Like I was okay with that.
You realize
What
he's
I
supposed to be
wasn't-
like 50 or 60 years old at this point.
Yeah, that's stupid. But what I didn't
Yeah,
understand
when does
is,
he
like,
turn into Kelsey Grammer?
So I wasn't aware they were both so deeply in love with Mystique.
No, yeah, they're not.
Okay.
I think Beast had a crush on her in First Class, and then she went with Magneto, and they had like a fling, and then that was it for a long time.
Okay, because I was like, when
For
they're
decades.
like both crying
For
and they're
decades,
like,
yeah.
we both loved her. I was like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Okay, I just had a thought. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't Mystique and Nightcrawler related?
I think she was his mom or wasn't she? Or did they
I
have a
think it
child
was
together?
her, yeah, her and Azazel. That's why he and Azazel are so similar.
Her and Azazel had a child, and it's Nightcrawler, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, does he not know that?
Well, it's not, obviously that's not what it is.
But he's like identical to Azazel.
Yeah, but
So,
Yeah,
in
but
this
the-
universe, I'm assuming she's not his mom.
Yeah, she's not his mom.
okay.
And
odd.
yeah, I mean the movie doesn't even care about that, right?
I guess not. I mean, she does rescue him in Days of Future, not Apocalypse. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, she did do that, and that was like sort of a weird reference, and people thought that meant that she was his mom or something, right?
I guess. I mean, the timelines don't add up at all.
No, but still, like, okay, let's talk about the X-Men, the Dark Phoenix storyline. How could it have been better?
I mean, sadly enough, I would have liked to see a little bit more of a cosmic element. Like I like the
Seriously?
Shi'ar. I wanted if you talked about the Shi'ar and stuff. I feel like if they increased the scope, they could have increased the stakes and the power sets, and I feel like that would have made it a little bit better.
I want to see less of everything across the board. I want to see less aliens. I also want the Phoenix to be less powerful, even though I understand, like, oh, that's the character. I'm kind of tired of, and then this person was basically God, and that's a problem. Like, I think that it's like this level of insanity that's hard to relate to and makes the plot weird, because when someone's this powerful, you're gonna have plot holes of why didn't they do A, or why did this person be able to do X. I think less is more in this, and having more scope, more cosmic, more power, I think that makes things worse, my opinion.
Yeah. I don't mind the aliens as just like, because they're kind of like a device to cause her to bring her powers up to the surface a little more. But I really don't think that this could have been done much better. This is the story. Like, it's tragic. In fact, the only way you could improve it is if you had more time with these characters before this. And maybe if she had killed like one more person. But
I mean, who could she have killed, really?
I mean, she could have killed any of them, especially since if they had known, which they didn't, but if they had thought that this was going to be the last one, they definitely should have killed more people.
Yeah.
Like Cyclops for sure, Beast for sure, and Mystique. Like, Beast could have died trying to save Mystique.
Could have been interesting if Magneto died.
He's too powerful. Too resourceful.
Oh yeah. Also, wait, didn't he get like supremely buffed by Apocalypse in the last movie?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Apocalypse sucks.
Yeah. And so did Storm.
But that one had its movies too. Yeah, she did. Now her powers are just so stupid. Like,
Yeah, I thought she just controlled the weather. Now she's like an elemental.
she's
She's Thor.
Yeah, she made ice cubes. Like, they came from her body. And they're all just drinking them.
Yeah, and
I mean,
also like
that's pretty much all it
in
is: lightning and
space
ice.
when she freezes it, I was like, I guess like, oh, maybe she's freezing the oxygen coming out of the space shuttle. But I was like, what's she doing? Like, we
Yeah.
get it. You need an excuse for her to be there.
Now that you brought up the space scene again, that reminds me of another thing that kind of made me cringe. When they duct taped Nightcrawler like as like a makeshift spacesuit, they didn't cover his hands or his feet, so he would still suffocate.
It was a little weird, like when Phoenix, or what's her name, Jean Grey, when she teleported into the spaceship, like she could just breathe in there. Like what the hell was that?
Maybe she had like a psychic link thing around her head. I don't know. It's stupid.
So
I want to try to
loved
justify it.
I loved, honestly, I loved the movie, despite me like not being interested in the alien stuff. I loved the movie up until we get to that dinner party with Jessica Chastain. Because that was right there. I was like, oh, this is a scene from a bad movie, and this is where the movie turns and becomes the movie it's going to be.
Yeah, you know what? I have something in my notes about that. She straight up crushes some dude's rib cage. Why
Yeah.
didn't she do that to anyone else in the movie?
I think she did it to someone else.
She didn't do it to any of the X-Men.
She did do it to somebody, though, right?
Yeah,
Later in the third act.
they do that.
She
like,
did it to her
weird,
father.
Like, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ever, you've mentioned it before. Hans Zimmer's score is fantastic in this film.
Yeah, it had some really nice tunes.
The
I
one that
immediately downloaded it.
well, do you have? I only listened to the Gap, or the one called Gap, which is the one from the space scene. But are there any others that you would definitely recommend? Like,
They're okay. They're all named kind of odd on the soundtrack, but the two ones I enjoy the most, I don't remember their names. There's the theme when Magneto and everyone are battling in New York. That's a really good one. And then
what's that
half of
called?
it's the train. I don't remember. That's my point.
God damn it!
It's that one. Here, I have it up right now. I don't. They're all named kind of weird. It might be negative. I know Coda's really good, and Insertion's really good.
Okay, all right. Anyway, go ahead.
And then the other one was just the train scene and her sacrifice. That's a really good song that plays.
Okay, you said you were gonna say something about the space scene or something.
Yeah, no, I said it. It was that Nightcrawler's spacesuit still would have had him suffocate because they didn't cover his hands or his feet.
Oh, but what did you guys think about them going into space?
I like the way it was played out in like why they were there, and how they kind of like showed the aftermath of it later. And I really like Professor X where he's like, we're always one day away from being the enemy, so we have to do these type of things. We have to do, and I think it was a good way to introduce, if you're gonna go with this is some alien entity, that really is the way you gotta do it. I'd rather that than asteroid crashes at the X Mansion and Jean's like, what's this?
Yeah. I also felt like if in a world where the MCU exists, I would prefer that it's the Avengers that like do that mission. I don't really want them to go out in space. But having said that, I really enjoyed like Charles, like when he talks to Mission Control, like all that stuff was I loved it.
You know what was odd? How come they? Because remember at the end of Apocalypse, they had them in their like comic accurate outfits.
Yeah,
Yeah, why did they change that?
I'm glad they changed it. The comic accurate outfits are totally overrated.
No,
Just
I know
another
they look stupid
example.
as hell. I'm glad they have the unified outfit in this movie. I'm just saying, why'd they change it?
Um, because they just like to tease that stuff. In fact, this franchise always teases like comic accurate costumes at the end of a movie. Didn't
Yeah,
Days
that
of Future
pissed me
Past have
off.
Magneto dressed, or was that First Class where he was
It was
dressed?
no, it was Apocalypse. I'm pretty sure.
No, no,
They
no, 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 no. At the end of the movie, it was First Class, I think, where he has like the red outfit, the metallic red outfit.
Yeah, it's end of first class. He has the metallic helmet with the little
Yeah.
like U on it.
And then there was one movie where Wolverine opened up like the costume with the yellow and black.
That was the Wolverine, and it was a deleted scene.
And then there was Apocalypse where they all had the '90s animated outfits.
And then they
Or
teased
yeah,
the Essex Corporation, and they never did anything with it until Deadpool. So that sucks. I wanted to see
well,
Mr. Sinister. He's cool.
who was the villain in Deadpool 2?
Fire Fist, I think, and Cable, sort of.
Oh yeah. Forgot.
And also Juggernaut.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that. He that's my favorite version of Juggernaut, considering the only other version is from X3.
Yeah. I wish I could see more of the X-Men as teachers, but I'm also curious how that would work, because like who's teaching them math? Is it Hank McCoy?
I mean, they had Storm like teaching them like chemistry or like weird science with like electricity.
Yeah, you know how to make electricity. You're science now. Wasn't she
Therefore you
like,
have the
wait,
knowledge to teach it.
wasn't she like a street urchin type
Yeah,
character in Apocalypse?
she was like a
Yeah.
beggar in Egypt.
Well, that's kind of my point. Is what qualifies her?
Nothing. None of them are really. I guess
Are they
Hank
getting
is
a-
because he was a scientist type guy.
And Professor
I
X
mean-
too is smart.
Yeah, I feel like Wolverine had the only real teaching credit besides Jean Grey and Professor X because of his history. But do you remember at the end of I think it was Days of Future Past, they had Kitty Pryde and Colossus teaching history or some shit like in that classroom.
Yeah, I wonder, like, if you were in school, like, let's say if they were going to make this real, like, would you have to be a teacher at the school in order to be an X-Men?
I mean,
Because that is a
Nightcrawler
problem.
probably doesn't teach anything.
Yeah, if they're going to put kids in the line of fire, like, I get that, like, Nightcrawler's powerful, but Professor X shouldn't do that.
I feel like it's just based on their power sets. It doesn't like they're like the favorite students. Pretty sure that's it. Because I mean, what's the difference between them and all the other mutants around the campus?
Well, they're older. So
Right, but they're still students,
first
and they're all
class is like
powerful as hell.
Mystique, and Beast, and then the second class is Nightcrawler and Quicksilver, and whoever else was introduced. Then the third class is Storm, and Cyclops and Jean Grey, and then fourth is like everyone else, whatever. So they're like on the old, like, Nightcrawler's second class.
Is he? I thought he was third.
Well, he was in Days of Future Past, wasn't he?
No, he was in. He wasn't. He was in Apocalypse.
Oh.
The only
Yeah.
person in Days of Future Past was Quicksilver.
Huh. That movie's so good. Yeah, no, I would like to explore the school side of it a little more. Like, as teachers that are superheroes, I think that's a cool idea. Like, open superheroes, they're not like, secret identities.
Yeah.
But like part of their job is like to teach and also to be an X-Men. X-Man. I don't know.
Do they have like combat training stuff? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean they have training. Remember they had those like danger rooms?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It's weird that we never saw like proper Sentinels either.
I mean, we did. We saw the shitty ones from like the 70s, and then you saw the real ones from the future.
Well,
You
the
didn't
real
see
ones
like
are,
the massive ones from the comics.
I mean, are the future ones considered the real ones? To me, those are like concept.
I mean, they're nowhere near the ones from the comics at all, because the ones from the comics are like 90 feet tall monsters,
Well, from
and those ones from the movie were like just metallic robots.
Yeah, what I remember from the comics is that the Sentinels were like a common problem. Like they were all over the place.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
too. It was like every other
Yeah.
issue episode
They, like-
problem was them.
Yeah, they destroyed Genosha at one point, I think, and they like that was like their base, I think, at one point.
I mean, I like the idea that the government gives the mutants some land and they just go there and like leave everyone else alone. I like that concept a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and it's comic accurate, except I don't think Magneto gets it from the government in the comics. He just creates a mutant society.
But don't they like build their own landmass?
I don't remember. I just know that Magneto turns it into a mutant society.
I think it's something weird like that. Um, we may have already talked about this, but I thought Beast was awful.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I
He was kind of
strongly prefer
off-putting.
Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, I agree.
So
He was just kind of weird in this movie. Like he completely ignores all of his normal character traits and goes on a revenge mission. Like he breaks that bottle of booze right in front of Professor X and screams at his ass. Like, and yeah, it's warranted because he just lost Mystique, but he goes on a murder mission in this movie.
yeah, I mean, but his character just like had nothing real to do, like other than to be mad. Like, oh, she died. Now I'm mad. And Nicholas Holt, it just doesn't look the part. Like he looks way too young. But were any of you guys considering him for Batman when you watched this, knowing that he was up for it?
I didn't know he was up for Batman.
Yeah, him and
I
Robert
don't think
Pattinson were the final two.
he wouldn't have done
Um,
well.
yeah, no, I think Robert Pattinson's a little bit better.
Yeah, anyway, I just like his beast sucks, and it's not
He
really his
seems a little
fault.
too scrawny, to be honest.
He's too scrawny, yeah, and his beast is like not really a beast. Kelsey Grammer was badass.
I like Kelsey Grammer because he couldn't change. He just was Beast all the time.
Well, also it's the way he talked and the way he held himself. You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
he
was
he
official.
seemed like a more mature. He was a government guy. I mean, he acted like a government guy. Even if he wasn't a beast, you get the sense that this is someone who knows what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, yeah, wasn't he the Secretary of Mutant Affairs?
Yeah, he wasn't like really an X-Men or an X-Man, but whatever. I think it's cool if we could have had him in the movie and he was like the pilot, like Beast is a cool character. And that's the point, like he shouldn't be able to switch back and forth. Because that's the whole point of the character is that he's like a smart guy who's a beast. If he can switch to a
Yeah.
human, like that kind of defeats the entire purpose. Then he gets like the best of both worlds. The mutant thing is supposed to be a trade-off, like from a
Yeah,
storytelling
I guess you're
perspective.
right.
Um, so what else? Okay, did you guys think it was hilarious um, she made when she made Professor X walk up the stairs?
Yeah, it was trying so hard to be a dramatic moment, but I couldn't take that seriously at all.
Yeah. Also, like, I, I don't understand if we were supposed to be like, oh shit, she just threw his own words back at him. It's like, really? You really think when Professor X says you can do anything you put your mind to, he means you can make yourself walk? Like, oh, good work, Jean Grey. Philosophy, 10,000 points.
I just thought it was too much. It's like you're making a crippled person walk up the stairs, and if you pretend like it took me out of the movie basically because now I feel like I'm watching James McAvoy pretending to be in pain, pretending to be a paralyzed person, walking up the stairs, and he's like ah.
And the CGI isn't great for it.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Um, what else? So let's talk MCU for a second. I have a feeling that part of this 5-year plan is Scarlet Witch doing the Dark Phoenix thing.
I could see that.
Really?
And I think it'll work because, as I said, the part that's missing here is the history between the characters. So, like Jean Grey and Cyclops, we only saw them for one movie and they were barely really together. And then in this one, they're like madly in love, but then she's gone. So, and it's like I don't know about you, but I felt like Apocalypse, we barely saw Jean Grey like be Jean Grey, and then this movie she's already the Dark Phoenix. Like it's too early.
Yeah, they should have had at least one other like buffer movie in the middle
Yeah,
to kind of like
yeah.
let you get to know the characters.
So with Scarlet Witch, I mean, she lost vision. She seems to me like mentally unstable.
That's why I want them to adapt House of M, because I feel like that would be a great excuse to adapt the mutants eventually, even though they're probably going to do it with the snap radiation.
Yeah, but I think Scarlet Witch is in these plans somehow.
Well, yeah, especially, she is a mutant in the comics, right? So it would make sense to use her in a way that if they could start saying you created the mutants or like it would make sense just from a continuity standpoint, a fragile one, but to get a nod back to her original character.
So let's say in 5 years
Um,
the Avengers movie comes out. This movie could potentially be Dark Phoenix.
you
Yeah.
know what I really don't want? Because if they're really going to make her the Dark Phoenix of the MCU, that would imply technically that she'd have to sacrifice herself in the end, right?
I don't think there's anything else for her character to do.
Then if that happens, that would be really stupidly shoehorned if like she sacrificed herself in this massive blast, and since she's technically the only mutant still left or in existence because Quicksilver died, like if that power somehow radiated all the mutant X genes and everybody on Earth, like that would be terrible.
I think she's gonna have something to do with the mutants.
I still think the snap radiation is a much better way to go. At least that makes sense.
It is, but it's hard.
I mean, like, how much of a difference is that really? Both energies come from from the mind, not yeah, from the Mind Stone, sort of. Except the Gauntlet is all the stones, and hers is just the Mind Stone.
The problem is you have so many mutants suddenly.
Well, it doesn't have to be suddenly. It's like, I mean, yeah, there's only really two ways they can do that. It's either in 5 years you figure out that like bit by bit people have been popping up over the course of the years, and they're like living in secret. They don't know what to do, and like things are starting to happen. Then the Accords turns into the Mutant Registration Act, that kind of stuff. Or they do it the whole what you just said, the abrupt way, where everyone just sort of like starts popping up in pockets all at once, and that kind of becomes a little convoluted and hard to deal with.
Like,
Because you can't adapt Xavier's school like in one movie. You need at least a couple to like develop that.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, do you remember in House of M? Doesn't she make her own children?
I think so. She does a lot of stuff. She kills pretty much everyone, right?
Like, would you guys be okay with her making Jean Grey her daughter? Like, naming her daughter Jean?
You
That'd
know
be a
what?
nice nod.
The MCU has a couple like things like that. Like what MJ in Spider Man's not the real MJ. Like, and they have other instances like that throughout the movies where
Yeah.
things are inspired by.
Well, I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to be a baby. Like, she could make her own people. I have to read the House of M thing. I have it here somewhere.
Honestly, I feel like the only way that would make sense is that if, like, in WandaVision, if they don't end up bringing Vision back, she's already deteriorating. Like, she'll probably go nuts and try to bring him back the way she like, how in House of M she like reconfigures reality. She
Yeah.
tries to bring Vision back, and it has unforeseen consequences. Like it like mutates other people, it kills other people, and then eventually like maybe she has to sacrifice him to set it all right.
It's tricky because you have to tie her, like, losing her mind to creating mutants. Like, why? Why would you do that, of all things? Because in House of
I don't
M,
know.
she is a mutant. And
I know she's a mutant
and
in
it
House
ends
of
with
M,
her
but
getting rid of mutants, right?
yeah, like she eliminates.
Yeah.
I think either all of them or a majority of them.
But there's like a connection there because she is a mutant, and so like to do more things to mutants makes sense. But for her to like be just like this weird science project and just suddenly be like mutants. I don't
Y-
know.
I mean, you know what would be kind of shitty?
What?
Okay, so you know how mutants, there's not a lot of them on the planet. There's like a small percentage of them. What if they somehow spun it to where everybody, like, mutants only developed from the portion of people on Earth that got snapped? Because wouldn't they have all been
Isn't that
directly
still
influenced?
half the population?
Yeah, that's half the population, and then the mutant population can only stem from them, so that's even less than half. That would make sense, right?
I like that
Because the
idea.
mutant, yeah, because the mutant population's already in a minuscule amount in the comics anyway.
How many years would you like to see Professor X have his powers in order for you to accept him as Professor X?
I'd need at least 7 to 8 years, because specifically for a telepath, like, because in the comics he's had it his whole life. He's had it for years, being able to develop that skill. You can't make a real Professor X in the span of like 3 years. He would still be juggling with the fact that he's a telepath and can read minds.
Well, what if he's a young Professor X like First Class?
I wouldn't mind seeing that.
That's the problem is that you kind of have to retread what's been done because you know he can walk and he eventually gets paralyzed later, but you have to do it tastefully. You can't really. It was done pretty well in First Class, and it would be him
Yeah,
and Eric, but the problem is Eric is a Holocaust survivor, so it's like, how are you going to do that? You're going to have to let go of that, I think.
I mean, I'm sure they can spin it another way. He's a Sokovia survivor, or he's a Snap survivor, or any number of like catastrophic events in the MCU.
Have you guys heard the rumor of Marvel is currently casting for someone called the Benefactor?
I read something about it, but I don't know what it is.
The Benefactor is rumored to be Norman Osborn.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking too.
And it's either Norman Osborn or the Fantastic Four.
What? So what would he be? Like Doctor Doom, technically? Then
No, no, I'm thinking like the Benefactor could be the Fantastic Four. Like they're the new like Tony Stark in terms
I
of
mean,
financial backing of world heroes
do you think that they're gonna
like
do?
R&D.
Do you think they're gonna do a Baxter Building or Oscorp takeover of the Avengers building in New York?
I mean, I hope so. But anyway, so one of the rumored people to play, and this is like a very very flimsy rumor, um, Jason Isaacs, which I think is fantastic casting. What'd you say, Emerson?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Um, Jason Isaacs
Wait,
is
Jason Isaacs for who?
for Norman Osborn.
That would work perfectly.
Remind me who he is
He's
again.
Lucius Malfoy.
Oh, that'd be good.
It's perfect.
Yeah, that would be really good. He would make a good Green Goblin.
So it seems like the next 5 years is going to be Spider-Man centric.
Yeah,
But I think that WandaVision thing is just going to be like a weird TV show with her and Vision living in the 1950s or something. And then at the end, it's going to be revealed that it's her just like basically having a mental breakdown.
yeah. That would be the whole House of M thing. Like she reconfigured reality and has to set it back.
Yeah. Um, Overall, like I think from the way all of us are talking, like it sounds like we very much enjoy this franchise still, even though the movie has like stupid parts to it. Like we enjoy these characters, we enjoy these actors, and we enjoy these stories. And I'm honestly sad to see it go.
I mean, let's be honest. A major like we've all said, and you've said it, and I agree, and me Emerson agrees. Comic stuff right now, the original comic stuff is stupid. What it's adapted to can be good, and a lot of the movies that we've reviewed in the MCU all have stupid stuff in them. That doesn't mean they're terrible. Like you're completely right. Everyone in the X-Men movies are good actors, and they do their jobs well, but it's not their fault that they get stuck with shitty dialogue or the movies aren't made correctly.
I wish I could transplant Fassbender and McAvoy as the new MCU people.
Yeah,
Why
that would
don't
be
they?
fantastic.
Is there a reason why they can't do that?
It's just
Confuse the
weird.
audience.
Yeah, it's just weird, and also,
They would be
I don't know.
retreading what they already did.
Yeah. And also, I'm going to be honest, if they're introducing mutants, those two characters at that age with that level of confidence and skill would not make sense. We've talked about this in the past, but you can't just say like, "Oh, here's Professor X and Magneto." These are people who are skilled, have had years of experience. Professor X, smartest guy in the room. Magneto, who's undergone so much pain, so much suffering, he's willing to do anything. He can do anything almost. You can't introduce those type of characters and expect us to take them seriously. They have to be introduced, if they're introduced, as young, inexperienced people.
You agree that they should be like the young people.
Absolutely. In fact, I believe that they probably shouldn't have Magneto or Professor X. At least not for a while, because those characters are designed to be mature and in control.
See, I disagree. I think you start with them on like day one.
Okay, but then that's not going to be like Magneto or Professor X. They're just people until they aren't.
Yeah. Like, I think you should have a Professor X movie. Just him. And like he is like learning to navigate. Because there's supposed to be Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right?
Yeah.
So you basically make a Martin Luther King movie where Professor X starts to stand up for like his minority of people, and at the end of the movie, or like at some point he gets introduced to Magneto, and it's like about that relationship, and his legs work, and he's not Professor X, and he's not Magneto. I know that's what First Class was, and First Class did it really well, but in the large scope of the MCU, like, I don't think you can just bring in the X-Men, like you said. We have to start from day one.
I agree with that. I agree. I don't think, in fact, to be completely honest with you, I know you're saying do day one Professor X and Magneto. I prefer day one Cyclops, day one Rogue, day one. Like, give me some of the more.
You can't because they need.
You can't really do those.
Those
day
characters
one. They're
need
his
the
students.
school.
I think you can.
Those characters are only the characters that they are because they have the guidance of Professor X, and debatably
in the
Magneto
comics,
is
yes.
their villain.
But
in the
thing,
movies that
right?
we've seen too.
I understand. This is a new movie we're talking about, and a new universe. The thing is, I think you need to be very careful. Like, Kia, you've said in the past, maybe introduce only like a few of the X-Men, like 4 or 5.
Well, there is a book. God, I can't find my phone right now. Well, go ahead, make your point.
What I'm saying is that I think that you need to do another less is more approach. And honestly, like, I don't know if right away it's like, hey, here's young Professor X and young Magneto would be as good. Give us young mutants who are a little more malleable, okay? Everett's saying, oh, these characters are only how they are because of these people's influences. Yeah, kind of. But you know who's really only how they are because of influences of people seeing movies from them for, over 10 years? Professor X and Magneto. People have seen movies with them for years now. This one. We've been talking about how much we love these characters, how it's nice seeing them again, how it's kind of sad that they're going away, right? So I think introducing them immediately could be problematic. Bring us some characters that we haven't seen as much, some characters that can do different things where you can change up some aspects of their character and it doesn't matter as much.
I mean, you're right, but the point I was trying to make is that if you want to have like Cyclops and Rogue and Jean Grey and everyone on day one, you have to have Professor X already established. Because if you don't, then they become completely different characters with different motivations and different everything else.
And that's completely fine. That's completely fine. Just like how Iron Man used to have to be one way before they made the Iron Man movies. Just like how Thor had to be one way. They change things. They keep some stuff and they go in their own direction. They create
They
new
didn't change
variants.
the origins of Iron Man or Thor. They changed Thor's personality a little bit, and they changed a few like little quirks about Tony Stark. They didn't change their direct origins. You're changing the mutants'
But they
direct
changed
origins.
Vision's origin. And they changed
Not
Scarlet
really.
Witch's origin.
Okay, Scarlet Witch have a point, but Vision, they didn't change his origin at all. He was created by Ultron.
His original, yeah, but
They
his
were forced
original
to change
original.
Scarlet Witch.
And what I'm saying is, and I think they were better for it. I think slavishly being like, but this character's origin says it must be like this is very bad. I do not.
I'm
Think,
not
I
saying
think
it has
that
to
you
happen
need
in
to
every
change.
situation. I'm saying specifically for these people, you have entirely different
Where's
characters
the rule
with
that
different
says it has
personalities.
to happen?
So
There's no rule.
Here's the
but-
rule. Here's the rule.
There we go.
So, okay, if you're gonna have Cyclops, let's just say it's Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Beast. These are the three that you have. If you have these three, then you have to have. So I'm not saying you have to have Professor X, but are you? So are they on? But eventually you're gonna have Professor X. So you're saying that there's like a Professor X that they haven't met yet? Is that your idea?
What I'm saying is, yes, there is a Professor X that they haven't met yet. And I don't even think those three should be put in, like, with the Avengers. I'm saying give us a movie, like, maybe with these three who don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're just going around, and the end of the movie is not, oh, they're X-Men now, or, oh, they've mastered it now. The end of the movie is still they don't know what the hell they're doing. And then you can have another movie where you have, like,
But
what you
what's
said,
the
the Martin
arc,
Luther
then?
King thing. The arc can be them trying to just figure out what they are. Not becoming heroes, but figuring out what they are. Trying to master their powers. And maybe you can introduce a fourth character who's like evil. Like, did you ever see Chronicle?
Yeah.
It's something similar to that, where you get these people who get abilities, and they don't have any grand plans. They're just trying to figure out what they are, but then someone creates the problem. And they defeat him, but they're not heroes. They're not out there to be the X-Men. And then you can have Professor X maybe create that push later where it's like, we're going to be heroes, we're going to be different. But I think that you should introduce them not as heroes and alone first, so we get this idea of like, this is chaos. And then you can bring Everett's idea in where it's like, oh, well, Professor X is what makes them what they are. And you can bring that in later. But I want to see some of these characters introduced first where it's like a fresh slate.
Well,
I think I kind of see where you're coming from. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing a movie where, like, Jean Grey, Beast, and everyone are, like, younger, and they have their powers, and they're living with them, but they don't know how to control them. And then eventually
Exactly.
you introduce Professor X, and then the
Exactly.
X-Men forms, where he starts to teach them.
Right. I'm not
But-
saying that they have to be, oh, I mastered my powers all by myself. But explore your powers a little by yourself, because that's what they should have been doing anyway.
so there's two problems with what you're saying. One, there's never going to be a movie where they're not going to be heroes at the end.
Well, that's a problem with the way the movies are made.
Yeah. So that'll never happen. Like, I think we can all agree that that's like they're never gonna go that direction.
Yeah, that's true.
But
We'll have to see what the future holds.
but the other thing is, if they're trying to figure out what they are, the best way to do that is to have like a mentor figure that teaches
Right,
them.
but what I'm saying is, okay, so the MCU is all, lately at least, has been all about these long-term arcs, right?
Yeah.
Like
well, not
multiple
really.
movies.
Sort of.
At least that's kind of where it's been, and people are theorizing that that's where it's going to go forward from here. Long-term arcs.
Yeah, but
over
like think
movies.
about like Doctor Strange. They jumped the gun on his progress.
Yeah, well, that's because he was needed as a plot device. But basically what I'm saying is I'm envisioning a long-term arc, but for the X-Men. Because as I'm saying before, you can't just have like, poof, they're there, and you can't just have them, poof, they're respected. So I want to see,
Yeah.
like, I agree with what you're saying, Kia, where we need to see Magneto and Professor X on day one, but I would like to also see some other people on true day one where they don't know Professor X. They don't know Magneto.
So
because for
let's,
me, that's always been
let's
fascinating.
table this. Let's table this, and I'm gonna give you guys some homework. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Homework.
Yeah. I realized I was sitting a little far away from the mic. So I'm gonna give you guys some homework. There's a comic that I love, an X-Men comic that I absolutely love, and I'd like you to read it and then tell me what you think. What we're discussing right now, like how to proceed. Tell me what you think. So, it's called X-Men Season 1 by Dennis Hopeless. And I bought it on Kindle. It's basically like what we're talking about. It's like the start of the X-Men. And so it's Professor X, and he recruits Jean Grey. And so you're basically being introduced to the X-Men through the eyes of Jean Grey. And he already has Angel and Iceman and Beast and Cyclops. And so Jean Grey is the fifth member, and they're led by Professor X. And that's it. And it's basically introducing them, and then you learn of Magneto and what he's doing, and so the characters are kind of forced to like choose whether to join him or not. And I just loved it. And there was never a follow up, unfortunately. But I think you guys should check it out. It's a short read. It's not, it's not super long. It's like a one off thing.
All right.
But I would definitely give it a shot. It's called X-Men Season 1 by Dennis Hopeless. I wish there was. I think I can share it with you. I'll share it with you right now.
I was going to make another point saying I feel like it's going to be kind of difficult to adapt X-Men the way they are. Because if you introduce the X-Men, you have to bring all their accompanying junk with them, like the Mutant Registration Act and Genosha and all that stuff that fits in with them that makes them fit well in the universe. I feel like that's why they're probably going to try to go for Fantastic Four first, because it's a little bit more like condensed.
I'm fine with that, but I don't think you have to bring all that stuff in. You can reintroduce it in new ways with more characters, but I think if you try to bring all of that in with them, then it's going to fail miserably.
Well, yeah, you can't bring it in with them, but it's an inevitability. You introduce the massive psionic-powered population, it's inevitably going to lead to that. That's what happened with the other rest of the MCU. It led to the what's it called? The Sokovia Accords, which was really just...
Right, but that came later. That came in, what, Phase 2? Phase 3?
Yeah, but that's my point. If you introduce the X-Men, it has to come eventually.
It doesn't have to come. Civil War never had to come. They did it, but it never had to be there.
Anyway.
I mean...
It's a story they could go with, but I don't think they necessarily need to. I'd like to see new stories. I'm going to be honest with you.
I want to see Doctor Doom. That's really what all I care about. That and Osborn. I feel like that would be really cool.
Do you think 5 more years with Tom Holland is enough?
Yeah.
It's at least one more movie.
I mean, you know what I kind of want to see? I kind of want to see, if they introduce Norman Osborn, I kind of want to see the death of Spider-Man, and I want to see Miles Morales take over.
I think that will happen eventually. But is 5 years? Is he going to die in 5 years? Is that what we think?
I'd be okay with that.
Well, okay, how long did Spider-Man have in his career in the comics? It was like over 10 years, right?
I mean, it's... Who can say, really?
He was like in his 30s when he died or something, right? Whatever. But
no, I don't think so.
5 years of crime fighting, I think that's enough.
I mean, that's definitely not enough, but...
I mean, for the scopes of the movies we're talking about, I feel like that's the minimum amount you need.
But remember, they're already in 2023. So, I mean, I think we're going to see him get married and all sorts of stuff. So maybe not 5 years. I don't think the end of this...
envision that.
I don't think the end of this phase ends with him dying. I think it ends with House of M. That's my guess.
Yeah. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on. Let's skip the fight of the week because it's getting late. Unless you had a really good one, Emerson?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Let's talk some quick roundup. I watched the Deadwood movie. Any of you guys happen to catch that?
Yeah, I think we
did not.
talked about this last week, didn't we?
We said
Everett
that
thought
it exists. It's out.
Blackbeard was black.
Yeah. So I watched the
No,
movie.
no, I didn't.
You thought Blackbeard was the concierge from John Wick.
No, I said that was Lance Reddick.
Yeah, but you thought.
You know what? I don't want to argue with you in fear that you might be right. So
We are.
whatever, just drop it. You're probably right. Who cares?
We are right. So I watched the movie. It's very similar to the show in that you have these larger than life characters like Calamity Jane, Al Swearingen, Wild Bill Hickok. Do you guys know Wild Bill?
No.
No,
Have you
I'm
heard
not
of
really accustomed to those names.
Have you heard of the Dead Man's Hand?
Perhaps not in the way
Yes.
you're thinking, but yes, I
Like a
guess.
hand of cards.
Yeah.
So Wild Bill was shot in the back of the head in a saloon, and those were the cards that he had. That's why they're called dead. Like they're famous people, is my point. And so William Randolph Hearst, I believe, is it's the oldest Hearst, the one that made all the money. He was like a character that showed up in the show, and he was the best part. Like when he came, that was like one of the best. The show was at its best, and so the plot of the movie is that he has returned to Deadwood 10 years later, and he wants to buy some land so that he could run some power lines, and he's used to like extorting people and strong arming them into selling, and the town basically stands up to him. And there's not a whole lot of action in it, which is pretty true to the show. It's mostly just people like all these larger than life figures just like getting mad at each other, and so it's about that. It's about their history. I enjoyed it, but it's not a Marvel movie. It's not like action every like 10 minutes. It's not like that. So it's not for everybody, I would say. But I enjoyed it. I also watched a little bit of Chernobyl. Anyone else watch this?
I've been meaning to
no,
get
but
around
it's
to it.
on my list for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad, but I watched it immediately after I watched Deadwood, and I think that I was maybe tired of like watching things. But I was not really invested in it. And I think I maybe got through like 10 minutes. And it was like the core had just melted down and exploded, and people were like freaking out, and I was just like, I'll watch it later, but I think my HBO subscription ends soon, so it's about 5 episodes, so you're looking at like almost 6 hours of TV, like maybe 5.5 hours. Yeah, so I can't give it a fair review, but it might be slightly overhyped.
I mean, from what I've seen on YouTube, like it looks really interesting, but it does look somewhat over dramatized. And I get
they
that
all have
that's
British
needed.
accents.
Yeah, I've heard that criticism pretty heavily, but I just know, like, from what I've seen, it's like the guy like looks at the camera and he goes, "This is gonna be the biggest disaster in human history," and the other guy's like, "Surely you're not right," and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
don't
and
call me Shirley.
and like playing through the Metro games where everyone's in Russia, and then I watched this and it's like in Russia, but they have British accents. It was not good. All right, let's so trailers. Ad Astra.
Yeah, it just looks weird. It looks like a mix between Gravity and Interstellar, to be completely honest.
I want to see it. Anyone else want to see it?
I mean,
Yeah,
I will see
I like
it.
the music from it.
I think
Got a little
I
bit
think,
of a retro feel.
I think it's gonna have like some weird parts to it that are not like it might make you think. I think. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Like I don't think it's like your standard space, Lost in Space type story. I think there'll
Yeah,
be
I
some
suspect
like
there's going to be a psychological aspect to it as well.
yeah. So I'm gonna give it a shot. What else? All right, Rambo, Last Blood.
Oh God,
Yeah, I know. Like to hell with
it
that.
looks bad. It looks bad. It just looks stupid. I don't know why Sylvester Stallone. Well, I know why Sylvester Stallone is doing it, but it
Money.
looks. It's a B movie. At best.
It looks like Home Alone, but with Rambo.
I've seen that comparison a ton. I've seen that comparison a ton, and it's not wrong. And I don't understand. Like, I just hate the taglines like, they took first blood, he'll draw last. And it's like, as Old Town Road is playing, he's like riding around. It's like, yeah, that's what this song is about.
I never heard that Old Town Road song. That was in the trailer?
It's real popular. It's real popular. Like, it's everywhere right now.
Yeah, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, so I'm not interested. I mean, if it comes out on a slow week, maybe we'll go see it, but I actually don't care. Frozen 2.
Okay, so yeah, I watched this trailer. It looks darker, or they're trying to make it look darker. It seems like Elsa is on some sort of quest to the north to like stop something or find something. Could be interesting. We're probably gonna see it. I'm guessing, Kia, because I think that it's gonna be big enough that you might want to, but up to you.
Yeah,
I haven't
who
seen the
knows?
first Frozen in a long time.
I mean, the first Frozen was good, but Disney sequels historically have been terrible. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And nothing about this trailer really excites me at all either. Like, I don't care that there's a monster that she sees.
It's like a troll.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just doing it to make money. I mean, why else?
Yeah.
But I feel
Honestly,
like
that's
there's
the
another enemy that we haven't seen.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, I don't know if we're going to care.
Yeah, it's going to be like some stupid wizard guy trying to steal her power. You know, some shit
The
like that.
story at the end is going to be like, women can fight back. And it's like, yes, I know.
I mean, that was the
first...
message of the last movie, that
Exactly.
it was very women empowering. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to do it again.
Yeah, but there's a difference between being women empowering and like beating you over the head with it. It's like, I don't need Elsa discovering that she can still like defeat her fears again.
Well, they sort of
Like-
beat you over the head with it in the last movie, because they like very highly emphasized that princesses don't have to fall in love, and B, if they do, apparently family love counts. Like, I don't know, it was weird. But people were like raving about it a shit ton.
All right, so moving on to news. Legion had a final season. Did you guys even watch it?
No.
Coincidentally, I saw a poster for it on my way down to the convention center today. It looked kind of odd. Like, they have a poster of it.
People love
yeah.
people love the first season, but I honestly couldn't get into it. It was
More X-Men stuff.
too wacky, too many dream sequences or visions or crap like that. I didn't care for it.
I don't know. Legion's kind of an odd character.
I have the comic, and I don't really like that either. Don't tell Jade, because she got it from me for my birthday.
Good thing she doesn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I couldn't finish it. All right. So I didn't even remember this. We probably reported on it, but Quentin Tarantino is doing a Star Trek film.
Really?
Yeah, I read about this.
And it's going to be rated R.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's intriguing.
It is intriguing, yeah. One thing I forgot to mention in our Aladdin review was that I would bet a lot of money that Jade's friend's cousin, who played Princess Jasmine, what's her name? Naomi Scott or something like that?
Something like that?
Yeah. She's going to be Kamala Khan in the MCU.
Huh.
And Kamala Khan, for those who don't know, it's like Captain Marvel's sidekick, but she's like a Middle Eastern girl. Let me see. Kamala Khan. She's Miss Marvel, right? And didn't they say something like Miss Marvel is inevitable or something?
I thought Miss Marvel was Captain Marvel, just another version of her.
I I also thought that.
Yeah, that's true, but then she also like later on became some other person.
But yeah,
I mean,
I remember, Kia, we did some news
she's
about some article where they said
Pakistani
Miss Marvel's
American.
I really don't care
inevitable at
enough
this
about
point.
her character. She's like Riri Williams, where like I didn't really read those comics very much, and I don't really like. I'm not that invested.
Well, I
Just
think she
speaking
has
about
a stronger
Aladdin,
following. Hey, hold on. June 10th, 2019. What the Mindy Kaling confirms discussions with Marvel Studios about Miss Marvel, aka Kamala Khan. She
Well,
better be like directing. She said, I think the people I've spoken to at Marvel about it are so excited about the character, and I think that they're trying to figure out what to do with it. And I told them I would help in any way because I truly love her. But they seem really interested, and I think they will probably do something.
well,
It's not going to be on Disney Plus. No, that there's like the streaming platform with them. It might be something like, I don't know what that quote means, but I think they understand how much there is the excitement. Riz, me, every different Desi actor was very excited. What's Desi? Is that like meant to be Indian?
I don't
The
know.
Riz Kaling refers to his Star Wars rogue actor Riz Ahmed,
Yes, it is. It's a subgroup.
who asked last May when Marvel Studios wanted a Mindy Kaling and Kumail Nanjiani to get started on the Miss Marvel screenplay. So when asked who she thinks should play Kamala Khan, Kaling responded, I feel it might need to be an unknown, right? It might need to be an unknown. Wouldn't that be exciting? Earlier, Feige said, we are doing Captain Marvel right now. Captain Marvel is shooting right now with Brie Larson. Ms. Marvel, which is another character in the comic books, the Muslim hero who is inspired by Captain Marvel, is definitely sort of in the works. We have plans for that once we introduce Captain Marvel to the world. Do you think that's her lesbian love interest?
I thought Rhodey was her lesbian love interest.
Wow. Are you saying that
do they
because
really
he's black, he's not a man?
No, what I'm getting at is, do they really need another
God.
Captain Marvel? Like the first one didn't really work out that well.
Also, the
What do you
power
mean it
creep.
didn't really work out that well? It made a bunch of money. $1 billion.
Yeah, but have you not noticed that a majority of people hate Brie Larson?
Yeah. But they made $1 billion.
But also, just think about the power creep here, guys. 2 Captain Marvels?
Apparently, Kamala Khan is a shapeshifter. She's actually an Inhuman.
Okay.
Her powers include the ability to stretch her body in any way imaginable, like Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. She also has the ability to increase and decrease her size like Ant-Man. She has the ability to shapeshift like the Skrulls.
I think she's in Ultimate Alliance 3. I think she's on the box cover.
She sounds overpowered. But anyway, Naomi Scott is going to be Miss Marvel.
Speaking of Aladdin, actually, I didn't realize Guy Ritchie was the director. I don't know why I
Yeah,
never,
remember I got him confused with Guy Pearce that one time?
But yeah, he directed the Sherlock Holmes movies.
He also did Robin Hood, didn't he? And like it was bad.
Yes, it was awful. It's just interesting, like to think about. I don't know. It's just he is clearly very talented, but yeah.
So Marcus Daniels was in Captain Marvel. And this is just kind of like a did you notice? So Captain Marvel executive producer seemingly confirms unnoticed Marvel villain cameo. In a recent Reddit AMA with Marvel Studios head of production Victoria Alonso, one fan had a question about some of the movie's depiction of the 90s era S.H.I.E.L.D., which apparently has some deeper character connections to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that many fans realized. Here's what Reddit user Pedrick spotted in the Captain Marvel footage. Was that a pre-blackout Marcus Daniel, which is a villain from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., tending the bar Carol and Fury were at? They are the same actor, Patrick Brennan. To which Victoria Alonso responded with, you noticed. I don't know Blackout.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I haven't caught up on.
Well, I guess it's season 1. Blackout, Agents
Really?
of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It was season 1?
Let's see. He was like a stalker or something. Let's see what he looks like.
I might recognize this guy.
But that's kind of interesting if he was in the movie and that they intended it. Oh, he's a white guy?
Oh, this guy? Oh, he was weird.
I don't remember him.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him. He's strange.
Anyway, the Captain Marvel Blu Ray has released. Mine is on my way to my door from Amazon. And then, so for gaming, obviously E3 has a lot of stuff, but since it's kind of late, why don't we just leave it? Because Everett and I are going to go to E3 on Thursday. And so we'll do that one. So for next week, I was thinking we have a break, and then it's going to be
Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones comes out next weekend. So like we wouldn't record it next weekend.
I thought it comes out in like 3 days on the 14th.
It comes out, yeah, but that's the weekend. I mean, we're not going to watch it all in time. Do you think you will?
Probably not.
By that weekend?
How many episodes is it? 10?
Probably 13. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's no way we're getting through that.
Shit.
In like 2
You know
days.
what? We have to. Because the week after is The Lion King. So this will probably be like, we're probably going to do this again in the middle of the week or something, but we'll try to get through it as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have time because I'm not at work until Monday, so. Yeah, and then so we'll do Jessica Jones, and then we'll do The Lion King after that. Or is it Toy Story 4? I think it's Toy Story. And then we have a week off. I mean, we'll watch something else. And then there's Spider-Man. And then Lion King is somewhere after that. So, we'll be busy for a little while. All right. See you guys next time.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Iron Coop Fights Movies. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and most importantly, review our podcast on iTunes so that we can spread the show around. To contact the show, you can reach us at theironcoob@gmail.com and on Instagram at theironcoob. Join us for another edition of the Iron Coop Fights Movies.